Good afternoon. Happy Thanksgiving Sunday. My name is Danny Chung. I am the English worship service here at KMC of Koinonia, so this sermon will be in English. Today's passage comes from the book of Deuteronomy. And the book of Deuteronomy is Moses' farewell address to the Israelites. Now, the Lord had delivered the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt. But due to their unbelief and their rebellion, they were not allowed to enter the promised land. Finally, however, their wandering days, after 40 years, their wandering days are now over. And even though Moses is not allowed to enter the promised land, Israel is about to cross over the Jordan River and enter their destiny. But Moses, he's very realistic. He's not naive about Israel's tendency to forget the Lord. When the Israelites were delivered by the power of God out of slavery in Egypt, they soon forgot his character, that he loved them, that he was out to do them good. Even though time and time again, he provided for them, they were quick to forget him. And unfortunately, that generation died in the wilderness. And there was no guarantee that this new generation was going to be any different. So Moses, he's not naive. So this is his final address to the Israelites. So he has concern for the people of God. In today's passage, Moses tells the Israelites to be careful not to forget the Lord. He is concerned that after they enter the promised land and enjoy its fruit, after they settle down, build homes, and increase in wealth, that they will forget the Lord. Moses fears that when times aren't desperate anymore, the Israelites won't depend on the Lord. He's worried that they will become entitled. What does it mean to be entitled? It means that you believe you deserve what you have. The Israelites, however, did not earn their salvation out of Egypt, but the Lord graciously delivered them. And they didn't deserve to enter the promised land, but the Lord, out of his favor, promised the land to them. Moses is concerned that the Israelites, after dwelling in the promised land for some time, will come to believe that they deserved their prosperity, that with their power they achieved their salvation and produced their wealth. What about us? Do you remember when you first cried out to God for salvation? Do you remember when you knew you were a sinner in desperate need of rescue? And do you remember how the Lord graciously showed you favor? But was it also the case that after a while, you took his mercy for granted? Has the prideful attitude creeped in that you deserve all the benefits you have, that you earn them yourself? The Lord, too, was mindful of Israel's tendency to forget him, so he had a plan. If you look at verses 15 and 16 of today's passage, Moses says to Israel, "He led you through the vast and dreadful wilderness, that thirsty and waterless ground, with its venomous snakes and scorpions. He brought you water out of hard rock. He gave you manna to eat in the wilderness, something your ancestors had never known, to humble and test you, so that in the end it might go well with you." The Lord humbled and tested the Israelites. He allowed them to be in a difficult situation. Why? So that they would learn to depend on him, and so that they would experience the goodness of God in the midst of difficult situations. You know, it's often in times of desperation that we reach out to the Lord. Maybe many of us, we sought the Lord for the first time because we were stuck in a difficult situation. And desperate times awaken in us our need for God. And while the Israelites were in the wilderness for 40 years, they were acutely aware of their need for God, because the wilderness does not offer much to sustain them. They knew that they needed the Lord to sustain them. And through the wilderness, they found that the Lord provided, the Lord sustained them. The Lord was out to do them good. Several years ago, when I lived in Los Angeles, I was a part-time youth pastor, and I was not making a lot of money as a part-time youth pastor. I was barely scraping by each month. At the end of each month, I barely had enough in my bank account, but I was finally given a full-time position, and I still wasn't making a lot of money, but finally I was able to move out of my parents' house, and I was finally able to think about saving money. And I was finally able to devise a plan to start paying off my student loans. So I moved out to a new apartment, a small studio apartment, very small, very cramped, and I determined to be very disciplined. I was going to be frugal, so I tried not to eat out, and I made inexpensive meals at home like soup, salads, sandwiches, and I was super determined to save money, because I believe if I'm just disciplined enough, I'm going to produce savings. But it seemed like in the first couple of months, I was cursed. First, my car engine had problems, so I had to get that fixed. That cost a lot of money. Then the headlight went out. Then a week later, the car battery died. And then I started getting parking tickets, all these things within a span of a month or so. And I was extremely frustrated, because here am I'm living like a monk, eating like a monk. I'm trying so hard to save, but it seems like money, there's holes in my pockets, so to speak. Money is just flowing out of me. And I didn't get it. So I decided, okay, I'm not gonna pay is the wrong word. I'm not gonna give my tithe for this month. I'm gonna double it up for next month. I'm gonna make it up. Because right now, I just need to save some money. But next month wasn't any better. And one night, I decided to take a walk and pray to the Lord, and I was frustrated. I said to the Lord, this is so unfair. Here am I. I'm trying to do the responsible thing. I'm trying to save. I believe I can do it, but why is everything against me? And that night, I heard nothing from the Lord. But I woke up the next morning, I sat in my favorite chair, and I felt this unusual urge to pick up a devotional book, My Utmost for His Highest, by Oswald Chambers, off my bookshelf, and read the devotion for that day. And the first words I read, it wasn't the first sentence, but the first words my eyes landed on was, do not say I cannot afford this. So I felt that the Lord had spoken to me, so I resolved, I'm gonna offer double the tithe. So I had to offer $500. Okay, I'm gonna give this money. Even though my bank account is gonna be at zero, I'm gonna offer this money because I'll trust in you, Lord. Now that Sunday, I received a call from my mom, and she told me that my aunt had dropped by and left me some money. And I ended the conversation not thinking too much about it. And after I hung up, I immediately got the sense that this might be a God moment. So I called my mom up again and asked, exactly how much money did she leave me? And she replied, $500. So in that difficult period, when my circumstances seemed to be against me, I found that the Lord was looking out for me. He allowed these circumstances in my life so that He could protect me from pride in the long run. Because I think I have a self-reliant streak in me. I could take pride in my own ability to be disciplined and save and say, I deserve these savings because I was so disciplined, because I sacrificed. I could have this prideful spirit in me, and I think the Lord was protecting me from that in the long run. And I came to learn that despite my best efforts to save, to generate wealth, to produce security for myself, it was ultimately the Lord who was my provider. And this lesson is extremely important for us because it keeps us humble and it keeps us grateful. If you think you deserve what you have because of your efforts, you will become prideful. And pride is the enemy of gratitude. But if you know that everything you have is ultimately a gift from God, you will be thankful. If you've been dwelling in peace and prosperity, be thankful. The Lord has given you the power to produce the results you have. If you are going through a difficult time, barely getting by, be thankful. The Lord will provide for you. The Lord will sustain you. Therefore, let us be thankful in all circumstances, because in all circumstances, the Lord is good to us. This Thanksgiving season, and in every season of our lives, let us remember the goodness of God. Amen.